So let's go ahead and get started here and jump in. So I'd like to start with a question. Actually, let me introduce myself. Why don't we do that first? My name is Gene Bakkum. I've been part of college golf 16 years and counting. My roles have changed a little bit with Cal Men's Golf, but I was on the coaching staff there for 14 years, helped the team to their first national championship in 2004 through a lot of stat analysis, player development. So I just wanted to share some actionable items with everyone today, and they're not the typical three that many of you have probably heard about, that being scoring average. Yes, everyone wants to have the low scoring average, the high GPA, and if the states are still accepting it, the SAT scores, which is all fine and good, but the bulk of the players coming through, they're not going to be experiencing the blue chip experience that you might have with, say, a Colin Morikawa who had multiple offers, and we happened to bring him into Cal. Most of the golfers that we're coaching simply aren't going to be playing D1 golf. So, help you help your players. Thought it would be useful to provide a few items that may be overlooked at times. So, wanted to start with the question of what are your best practices, and I'd like everyone to throw in your best practices that you use to help your players get into college golf into that chat box, if you could. And this will be, this is being recorded, so everything here will be available to those on the training site if you happen to miss it. So let's dive in here. So, and as I'm revealing some of these, please add your best practices in that you that you'd like to share with the group in the chat box, please. So this is a big one here. Geographic locations of schools, teaching them about communication with coaches. That's a great one. Email coaches directly, exactly. And it's not coming from the parents. That's a big one. Great done, great share, thank you. Managing expectations, perfect. This is going to be a good lead into the everything that we talk about today. Yep, perfect, Jim. Yep, best fits. That best fits the player. Find the size of the school and the program that best fits. Beautiful. And here are a couple of ideas that putting up on the screen here for you guys. It's great. Researching the head coach and the program history. That's that's another one that players don't tend to do. They'll have their friends determine their goals together. Yep, very good. Great, Jackie. Okay, this is good. Okay, so we're going to keep this going. I appreciate everyone's comments so far. This is great. I think their academic versus their athletic priorities. Some of these players, they do want to continue playing college golf in college, and they want to have that team experience. But some of them do plan on being doctors. One of my kids is planning to be an astronaut. So she wants to play golf, but her priority is to become an astronaut. And so she's looking at schools that are going to emphasize that. And we're still trying to figure out how golf is going to fit into that, whether it's going to be on a team or potentially on an intramural team, and depends on her academic load that she runs into. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first slide here, and this is really getting to that first one. Is the player does need to be advocating for themselves, and this is one of those pieces of advice that really is important to emphasize to the player that unless they are winning national tournaments regularly, they're not going to be those blue chippers. So if they're not the blue chippers, they're going to have to earn those extra spots on the team, which are going to be highly coveted, highly sought after. Golf is incredibly competitive, but women's golf is really coming on strong as of the last 5-10 years. And so in either case, it's critically important that these players are figuring out what they want, that best fit. I know Jim, put that in the chat box, finding the best fit for the player. And that's absolutely 100% accurate. If a player is constantly thinking, well, okay, I'm going to wait for the coaches to reach out to me, it's probably not going to happen. If the player is constantly thinking, well, I want a golf scholarship to play golf, that's their dream, or as an extension, that's their parents' dream for the player, that can put them in a really tough, difficult spot where they might not end up playing college golf because they waited too long. So it's really important that the player is advocating. So they've got to be making the phone calls. They've got to be sending the emails to the coaches. And although NCAA regulations, prevent the coaches from reaching out to the players until their junior year, the players still can send the coaches their stats. They can send videos. They can send tournament highlights. They can reach out with a phone call or an email. And if they happen to catch them on the phone, the coach is going to answer and say, hey, well, I'm not allowed to speak to you, but it's great to hear your voice. And, thanks for keeping me posted. Making that connection early on is really, really important, because a lot of these coaches are recruiting earlier. Oftentimes they're trying to fill their rosters 2 years out. So having the players reach out with phone calls and emails early, very important. You can find the best fit for the player. What that really is talking about is the, having the player, I just chatted with one of my kids on Saturday, and, they're still feeling a little overwhelmed. I said, well, if we narrow it down to geography, so where they want to be, are they going to be in state or out of state? What majors are they interested in? That'll pare that list down really quickly. It's like a filter, search filter. Next slide. Looking beyond D1. Again, this really ties into, that idea that maybe the best fit isn't going to be D1 golf. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the story of who's caddying for Colin. It's JJ Jakovac, who played at Chico State. JJ is a phenomenal player. He won multiple tournaments as an amateur before going to college, and was from the Chico area, and he wanted to stay local. And he played on the D2 team there at Chico and had a phenomenal college golf experience. And there's a lot of players in D1 golf that he would have been thumping had he decided to go that route. So there's tremendous play available for players, competition beyond D1. So the D2, D3, NAIA is fantastic. Junior colleges, there's a lot of options out there, and a lot of players really get fixated. And again, I think that's an extension through their peers and through their families, and they simply don't know. So I would implore you to do some research, use some resources. GolfStat is a tremendous resource. They have a subscription service. Some of you may be old enough to remember the college golf book, the Ping College Golf Guide. And that was actually in paper form. GolfStat bought that, turned it into an online service. And so you can find out the size of the school, you can find out the coach, you can get their contact information, such as their phone numbers and emails. And it's a great way of starting. You can also find the rankings there. So I would encourage all of you coaches to use that as a resource. You could even subscribe to it if you'd like. But I think that, the more information you can provide to the players, the better. And I think that starting early is really also overlooked. A lot of players are thinking, okay, by the time I get to my junior year, now I'll start thinking about college. It's got to happen much sooner than that. Typical time frame for college golfers, for high school golfers in their freshman year. That's when I sit down with the families and say, look, we've got to start planning. We have a trajectory for you, but we need to make sure that we're updating your goals. We're updating your stats. We're seeing where you are in relation to where you might be fitting on a college team. And your goals can change. Nothing's written in stone. So getting the players in a habit of writing their goals down annually, maybe even twice a year, doing an update, having some outcome goals, because those outcome goals really can drive the process. I'm having my players constantly reverse engineer. So what is their end goal? They want to play in college. They want to play beyond college golf, etc. Their interests in what they study, because the classes that they take in their freshman year of high school, will spark some interest. And then all of a sudden they take a biology class in their junior year and their interests change. So starting sooner rather than later is really, really important. As sort of a general guideline, you want to start organizing stats. You want to start organizing their goals. You want to start getting them ready for tournament preparation, how to prepare for tournaments. Are they traveling yet? Or do they still need to be playing locally and getting their feet wet and getting used to being in contention, top 5, top 10 in tournaments before they start moving on and expanding to regional tournaments and then to national tournaments. In their sophomore year, they should already be reaching out to college coaches. Again, the college coaches aren't allowed to be reaching out to them this early, but this puts them on the radar. And I'll give you a great example of this. Walter Chun, who is the current head coach at Cal, he's from Memphis, Tennessee, and he cold called the coach at the time, Coach Steve Desmond, and said, "Hey, I want to play for you." And he was ready and prepared for questions because it was really a call out of the blue. He wasn't on Coach Desmond's radar at all. He was a decent player, but it wasn't something that Coach was. He wasn't on the national radar. Let's say he wasn't a blue chipper, and so he had to advocate for himself. And he said, "Well, sir, I'm ready to move away from my family. I'd like to go to the Haas School of Business, which is one of the top business schools in the country." And was at that time as well. And it was through that conviction that Coach Desmond saw in Walter, the fact that Walter was the one making the call, it wasn't his parents. It really opened the door for Walter to be able to come to Cal and be recruited and play on the team. So you can't get started early enough. By junior year, the players should absolutely be narrowing their list. Again, we talked about geographic location. We've talked about whether the player is going to be in-state or out of state. The tuition costs, have risen exponentially over the years. And so that could really play a big role in, whether they stay in-state or they go out of state. In-state players tend to have priority getting in academically to schools. And then the tuition costs are significantly different in-state versus out of state. What their area of study is going to be, by the time they get to their junior year, hopefully they have a few ideas of what they'd be interested in studying. And then by the time they get to the senior year, they should have a pretty good sense of where they're going. I do have a couple of players who financially, they were struggling even with scholarship offers. And so some of them went to junior college and got 2 years of experience playing junior college golf. And it saved their families a tremendous amount of money. And one of my players transferred into Cal just this year, and he's getting started here for the winter semester. So he's going to get his degree from Cal, and his family was able to save a ton of money. So it's a really, really critical piece that the players are understanding that they may not be, they're probably going to land in the majority of players, which is to say that they're not going to be recruited by these D1 schools. Setting expectations early. I think I saw that one in the chat box. That's going to be the best thing that you can do for your players is to be honest and upfront. It doesn't mean to destroy their dreams or their ambitions of playing higher up, but by helping them prepare early, by helping them advocate for themselves, by helping them to come up with their own list of what those best fits might look like, you're setting them up to succeed, and that's really going to be the biggest impact. And by doing that for the players, you're going to earn their trust more. Your reputation as a coach that helps players get into college golf is going to grow. And I wouldn't set it up as having a scholarship be the your flagship model for playing college golf. I've seen harm come that way when it becomes the priority. And I've personally had players experience that where their number one goal was to earn a scholarship, and they in fact achieved that. And when they got to that school, they realized that it wasn't the best fit for them, whether it was the relationship with the coach or the players that were on the team or the areas of study, and they had to transfer. And that can be a tough experience on a player when they achieved their dream or what they thought was their dream of achieving that scholarship, and realizing that there was more to the college experience, both academically and athletically. And they transferred, and they had a much better experience, even though that scholarship wasn't the same. It was much smaller amount, but their experience, they were so much happier, and they had wished that they had a different goal going in. So even for some of those families, and by the way, this was a family that it was a single parent raising their daughter, and they were really strapped financially, and so they really felt like money was a critical piece, and it can be a barrier. But in the end, she was so much happier and got so much more out of the transfer scenario that she had, and it really set her up for success beyond college. And so I think at this time, I know I've probably flown through these slides, but wanted to give you all some actionable items that you can take away. And I feel like these are all three of these, starting early, making sure that, they're finding the best fit. These are frequently overlooked by coaches, particularly those who didn't have a college golf experience for themselves. So I'd like to open it up to questions. And if you want to type your questions into the chat box, that would be great. Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions pop up in the chat box. If anyone would like to unmute themselves, if you have a quick question that I could answer, I'm happy to do that.
Gene, I got a question.
Yes, fire away.
As far as the student and the coach and the swing coach and then the college coach, how does that work? I had a student say, I'm not allowed to talk to my coach, but you can talk to him. What's the rule there?
Oh, okay. So are you asking about NCAA rules?
Yeah. I've got a high school kid. He wants to go to Alabama. You know, he said the coach is going to be calling me instead of him.
Instead of the player.
Yeah.
Right. And what year is your player in school?
Well, he was a sophomore at that time.
Yeah. So the NCAA rules don't allow college coaches to be reaching out to players until their junior year. And it used to be July 1 of their junior year, and they updated it to push it out to September of their junior year, because the recruiting process, and it's for college athletics in general, because you can think of like a football player or basketball player, or some of the bigger revenue generating sports, but it encompasses all athletics, and so they do it to protect the athletes from being started so early. But the college coach can reach out to the swing coach, or reach out to you and ask you some questions about the player. That's allowed. And so having it's helpful to understand the NCAA rules and regulations as well, and that's where the players will frequently get discouraged. If they think, well, gee, this feels very much like a one-way street. It absolutely is, because again, the NCAA rules are there to protect the athlete, and so if the player sending emails or leaving voicemails for the coaches and not getting return calls or emails, it's for a reason. So it really is a one-way street in those, that freshman and sophomore year, but it's a great way of the player being able to put themselves in front of the coach early on, because if they're not that blue chip player, who's playing in AJJs and getting top 10 finishes, and that player is going to be recruited by multiple coaches. That's an easy one. Those are easy pickings. That's the low hanging fruit right there. It's finding the needle in the haystack. And so if a player is out there advocating for themselves early and saying, hey, coach, I understand my scoring average isn't where it needs to be, but keep an eye on me. My scoring average right now is 76. And that's their freshman year, let's say. And then the next year, their sophomore year, they say, okay, see, it's down to 73. I've shaved 3 shots off. I'm working really hard. I'm on my way to, playing for you, becoming a Bear, let's say, for Cal. It really goes a long ways, because the coaches get so many emails, resumes mailed to them, phone calls. It's one coach and one assistant coach, and it's the assistant coach is doing a lot of that legwork. And so, they'll get their typical, here's my scoring average, here's my GPA, here's my SATs, but, they want to know who that player is. And is it the player that's, taking the time to write a personal note and learn about the school and learn about the golf program?
Okay. And one last quick question, I'll let you go. Sure. The equipment, what about equipment? Players getting equipment. I'm talking high school.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience on that?
Well, so can you elaborate a little bit more on?
Well, just, let's say a kid shows up with a brand new set of golf clubs, and I said, where did you get those? He said, well, this company gave them to me.
Yeah, and I think that there's been some recent updates to the USGA and RNA updating with amateur golf and junior golf, and yeah, I've had kids who have some sponsorship, whether it's with Titleist or Callaway or some of these equipment manufacturers, and they're getting equipment. And that's fine. Are you asking when they go to college golf, or are you asking for a different purpose.
I just don't want to break the rules, it seems like, I'm on a staff with a company and my students have better equipment than me. So I'm wondering how that works.
Yeah, if they're playing well and the equipment companies are gonna offer some type of deal for them, that's fine. It's let's see, I'm seeing ncaa.org. Yep. So it looks like there's some links being added in the chat box there. Compliance rules. Yep, Todd. Yep, thanks for including those links there. The NCAA does have some good references, the recruiting guides, and that's similar. You'll find that on the Ping College Golf Guide or through GolfStat now. They've got some great resources there for compliance. There is a lot of information out there. Great question. Thank you. Other questions, please.
Gene, as far as coaching goes, can you still give lessons to players? If I have students, I have an opportunity to maybe coach or start a junior college program at our junior college located nearby. And it wouldn't be a full-time job with them. So I would still have lots of teaching time. But is there any like NCAA guidance on, obviously I'd be coaching kids, that started with me in 7th grade and, might want to play for me or this and that. Is there a time where you have to quit coaching them or what's the guidance on that?
Yeah. So the NCAA, so here's a fun fact. It's the GCAA, the Golf Coaches Association of America, that creates the rules. The NCAA is the enforcing body. So as it relates to golf, the GCAA says if you are teaching a prospect-aged player, you cannot also be a collegiate coach. So it's one or the other. However, if you are at a private club, then you are serving the membership and are obligated to offer services, lessons to those players. There are exceptions, but I would be really careful with that one. It's actually why I resigned as a college coach, because I was teaching at a public facility. I am teaching at a public facility, and so I had to shift my role so that I wasn't jeopardizing the eligibility of both Cal Golf, which I was coaching for, or the players, and having NCAA penalties placed upon them. There is an exception though. So if you are going to be coaching for a women's team currently, you are allowed to teach prospect age players as well. And so it's, you want to keep up with the Golf Coaches Association of America rules and regulations about that. But you can look under the NCAA. I think the link that Todd put in there in the chat box there, that's going to take you to the NCAA website, and you'll be able to see, all the bylaws and rules and regulations there. So something you definitely want to do a little bit more research on before you jump into the coaching, because it can have ramifications for both the program that you're coaching and your players. So definitely keep updated on that. I think we're out of time here. I appreciate everyone's participation, feedback and comments. If you liked what you learned here and you want to work on your journey, feel free to reach out to us at RGX. All of the mastermind calls are recorded and saved. So if you weren't able to join the call, you can always watch them on playback. Appreciate it. And thank you guys. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.